Yesterday on this program, we had a lot of fun with Jessica Tarlov because, well, she was kind of moronic. And she said probably the single stupidest thing we've ever seen on cable news in recent years. And that's saying something. But at the end of the show, I said this. When you get owned by a 73-year-old woman who's about 4'11", and you are reduced to just a heaping pile of muttering, mumbling, imbecilic nothing, you know it's time to hang it up. But she doesn't. She keeps coming back for more. God bless that Jessica Tarlov. We're looking forward to today's show. Can't wait to see what kind of stupid thing she has to say. And we also promised you that we would probably share whatever stupid thing she has to say with you. And, you know, I'll be honest with you, it was a bit of a gamble. I mean, why make a promise like that at the end of the show unless I'm confident that Ms. Tarlov would deliver? And she did. Here she is yesterday on the 5, reacting to the elimination of the Department of Education.
Republicans out there talking about their plan for education in America. I don't hear them talking about making sure disabled kids have access to a public education. I don't hear them talking about impoverished.
Because we're against it.
I know you are. Thank you for admitting it in such a public forum. They want to end up privatizing it. They want a voucher system, which means that kids who can't get to those schools, don't have enough money to, or frankly want to go to public schools, won't have access. And they also have all of these religious kooks, like the superintendent of Oklahoma, who wants to spend millions of dollars on Bibles for the schools, Trump Bibles, because it's all a grift. They want to make it private. They want to make them religious institutions. And that goes against what you're supposed to do in America. So does it need reform? Does it need to be made better? 100%. But come on.
All right, a quickie here real fast. I do like Gutfeld. Yeah, we're against disabled kids getting their education. Again, hate to play this card, but I've been through the process with 2 of my 4 children having special needs. And you'll see this stat all the time. You know, 98% of disabled children rely on public education. Yeah, let me tell you something about that. In the state of California, which is very similar to most states in this country, there are a lot of tax dollars that are allocated toward therapy programs, occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy, various other educational therapies for special needs children. Whether your kid has cerebral palsy, like one of my kids does, or is on the autism spectrum, like my other child is, or Down syndrome, or what have you, that tax money is there for you to benefit from. You pay your taxes, you should be able to get those benefits, right? So you show up and you say, hey, my kid has special needs. I got to get some therapies. So where are my benefits? And they say, oh, well, here you go. Oh, wait a second. Your kid goes to private school? Oh, wait a second. Your kid is homeschooled? I'm so sorry. But the only way you can access all of these therapies is through the public school system. Yeah. So the state set it up so that all of those therapies for disabled children are funneled through the school district and the school system. Now, there are ways to work around it, and you can still get your therapies through the school system if your kid isn't enrolled there, but it's really hard. It's very challenging, and most parents just say, okay, what the hell? That's why all those disabled children are getting their benefits and their therapies and things through the school system, because the government forces that. All right. So good for Greg to push back there and say, yeah, we're against disabled children. But you see, this is the only thing they have. I want to remind you, everyone who's opposed to the destruction of the Department of Education, none of them are saying, look at our track record, look at our success. Why would you dismantle this thing that has been obviously so good? In fact, at the very end there, she says, does it need reform? 100%. Well, where the hell have you been? Where the hell has your party been? Where the hell has every single Democrat for the last 4.5 decades been? I am so sick of this. I'm so sick of all of the Democrats who are criticizing Elon Musk and Doge and all the other things that are going and saying, well, everyone agrees we've got to get rid of the fraud. Well, where in the hell have you been? You haven't done a damn thing. And now someone's doing something, and now they're screaming for the disabled children. Trust me, the parents of the disabled children, we're just fine with this.
Democrat politicians,
let me tell you
send their
You
kids
tell
to
me.
private schools.
I'm going to tell you.
All
Number
right,
one,
I'm ready.
Number one, we are one nation under God, and don't make a joke about that.
Do you think there should be Trump Bibles in public schools?
Number two is the issue that the Department of Education has wasted $100 billion a year. So cut the crap. You yourself admit they don't do any education. Now, you say that Trump is not dismantling. He's already dismantled with DOGE. And let me make one thing also clear. Department of Education was created by an executive order by Jimmy Carter as a payback to the unions. Subsequently, Congress came in and created it, and we're going to end it the same way with an executive order dismantling it. Subsequently finished by a decision by Congress. Now, let's be real clear. All of these issues, as it relates to Pell Grants, special needs, all that stuff is being moved to different departments within Washington. They are not being eliminated, and don't make it sound like these kids are being forgotten, because they're not. But if you want to talk about no child left behind, if that's what the Democrat liberals believe in, that screwed us up, screwed our kids more than anything, because no kid left behind made sure that every kid passed. And now we've got kids who can't even read at 8th grade level because they were passed. We have a 19-year-old who graduated with honors who can't read proficiently. All of this Democrat nonsense labelism is for the birds. And let me tell you one more thing. The Constitution does not guarantee an education. It is not a federal right. It is not a federal issue. It is something that, under the 10th Amendment to the Constitution, is left to the states. The state constitutions have provisions where you have a right to education. But this is something that is for parents and for educators, for teachers, that we do love. We don't love Randy Weingarten and what she did to our kids when she couldn't find one metric in the billions of dollars that we gave her to open the schools to make it safe enough for her and her pals to go to open up those schools. You know what, Randy? Go back to Ukraine for the 3rd time to try to figure out what they're doing in education. And let me tell you one more thing. I'm not done.
One more thing.
One more thing is these kids in China and in Russia that were studying quantum physics while our kids were hiding and doing drugs and alcohol, and the kids in Norway and Denmark and Sweden. We spend more money per kid than any country in the world, and we're losing because of the Democrats. And that's the end of that.
That was beautiful. Yesterday, we showed you a flashback clip of Judge Jeanine owning Jessica Tarlov in the greatest own that show's ever seen. And now we're going to have to replace it, because that is the greatest own. And once again, at the hands of a 70-year-old 4'11" woman. And by the way, our very own Katie Pavlich from Townhall. You saw her the other day in the new media seat at the press briefing. Well, Katie was on the panel yesterday too, and she wanted a little piece of Jessica.
And when I hear Republicans out there talking about their plan for education in America, I don't hear them talking about making sure disabled kids have access to a public education. I don't hear them talking about impoverished
because we're against
kids.
it.
I know you are. Thank you for admitting it on such a public forum.
We're going to accuse the Republicans of not caring about disabled kids getting an education or poor kids getting an education. The Biden administration threatened to withdraw funding for student lunches if school districts did not force young women to have men in their locker rooms competing with them. So if we want to talk about those types of things, we can, but that's not what the president did today.
Thank you, Katie. See, that's the kind of quality stuff you get from Townhall. Love that woman. One other thing, back to Judge Jeanine talking about how there's no federal constitutional right to an education. This has always been in the state's purview. 100% true, but you don't have to go all the way back to the founders and George Washington establishing that. No, in fact, as Glenn Beck showed us yesterday on The Blaze, all you got to do is look at the founding of the Department of Education. See, all these people lamenting and screaming and crying about this executive order and hopefully future legislation that will dismantle the Department of Education once and for all. Nobody's going back and looking at the language that was used to create this department. Glenn did, and this is brilliant.
As Michaela was doing her homework on this, she said...
One of your producers?
Yeah, one of our producers. She said, have you read the Department of Education Organization Act? I'm like,
Oh, obviously.
of course I have, but tell me what you found. Listen to this. It is the intention. This is the founding document passed by Congress. It is the intention of Congress in the establishment of the Department of Education to protect the rights of state and local governments and public and private educational institutions. Well, just that are they operating within the law that was set by Congress?
Because I think you could convince me that that's a good idea.
Yeah, right.
Right? That sounds great.
Right. So let me read that again. The intention of Congress in the establishment of the Department of Education to protect the rights of state and local governments and public and private educational institutions in the area of educational policies and administration of programs, and to strengthen and improve the control of such governments and institutions over their own educational programs and policies. Do you hear the second half of that? To strengthen and improve the local and state administration and the control of their own educational programs and policies. That is not what the DOE is doing.
No.
Not even.
Not even close. It's a brilliant get and a brilliant find and a brilliant grab by the brilliant producer of the Glenn Beck Show. And I can only wonder what our producer has been doing every single day as we put together the rundown for this show, because not that's for sure.
Yikes.
Sorry, Kevin, I didn't mean you, of course. I apologize. Although, Kevin works very hard. Too hard, in fact. Kevin, take this weekend off.
Gee, thanks. I probably won't.
That said, Beck with a great own there. Katie Pavlich with a great own. Jessica Tarlov with a complete and total fail. Jeanine Pirro absolutely spiking the ball on her head. It's fantastic. And everyone needs to be singing from the same songbook here when it comes to the Department of Education. Look at the language that Glenn Beck just read to you. That was in the act that created this thing. Why did they write that in the act that Carter signed in? Because they knew that they could never create a Department of Education unless they lied to the American people at the time and told us, hey, this is to strengthen local control. This is to reinforce the state's position here. This is never going to usurp the natural control and direction that local jurisdictions have over public and private schools too. Trust me. Oh, no. This is just so you can get more money and we can make it go to you faster. Well, that's obviously not what the Department of Education became, and it happened very quickly. That's how it always happens in Washington, D.C. And it's time with this department for it to go.